Hello, good night, everyone, and welcome to Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. I am your host and the founder and CEO of Williams Law Group, Allison Williams, and we are here tonight with my guest, Allison Ziefert, who I will introduce to you shortly. So, for those of you that are not familiar with the show, I just want to tell you a little bit about Moving Families Forward. It is an initiative that we started here very recently over the last couple of months. And it is a show really dedicated to our clients, our families, and our communities because we have a lot of people who encounter our firm when they are at a very tumultuous time in their life. Many people that are going through divorce or changes of custody, domestic violence matters, or even people accused of child abuse and neglect, oftentimes will come to us at a time when they are really struggling and going through a process that is considered deconstructive. They are taking apart what they put together in a family unit and starting to see that their lives are now evolving in a different way than they had planned. And a lot of times people think about divorce as a very negative process, but what we have found is that by giving clients an opportunity to rebuild their life in a way that is fundamentally better than the way that they were living their life before, they actually get to see that divorce can be transformative in a positive way. And they oftentimes will encounter new ways of being healthy with their children in terms of parenting, new ways of interacting with their former spouse in a way that benefits their children, and new ways of looking at the new life that they've created that really is all about them and not so much about the pair that was in a relationship before. So through that process, that's how we approach the divorce process here at Williams Law Group. We're located in Short Hills, but we do serve all of North Jersey in the area of divorce. One of the things that I thought would be valuable for the people that we serve is to have options for the various different professionals that we work with. And we help people with a lot of different types of issues. And as a result, we've encountered a lot of different great professionals that are dedicated to our clients, dedicated to their causes, and really know how to bring their expertise to benefit the individual who we are helping. So with that, we have a guest every week on the show. And that guest brings their level of expertise and shares information free of charge to the people that choose to tune in. So I want to thank you again for tuning in. If you are here, that means you either know about us or want to know about us. So thank you for that. And we ask that you do share the live as well as comment and share with us any thoughts or questions that you might have as the show progresses. So tonight's guest is one of the great people that I've had the occasion to meet through the NADP, which is the National Association of Divorce Professionals. We are both in that organization. And my guest tonight is Allison Ziefert. Allison, she leads a top producing team of realtors at Keller Williams MidTown Direct Realty in Maplewood, New Jersey, and is actually the #1 brokerage house in all of Maplewood and South Orange. Allison's business model is to make her clients' transactions as smooth and stress-free as possible. And before she started her career in real estate, she actually worked as a project manager for a large construction management firm and ran a downtown economic development organization. So she studied art history at Barnard College and received her degree in urban planning and historic preservation from Columbia University. So Allison, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Allison. I'm excited to be here and be part of the series.
Great. And we're really happy to have you here because real estate issues come up in divorce far more often than not. Families have to struggle with whether to keep the house, who's going to stay in the house, if there has to be a change of hands of who's going to own the real estate, where should they move, and how. So it's always positive for us to have good realtors that are on site and ready to help people. So with that, I'm a little curious to know, and I want to just introduce our audience to you as a person. What drove you to become a real estate agent?
So Allison, you touched on my background a little bit, and the funny thing about real estate, it's really not the kind of career that you dream about as a little kid and think, oh, someday I'm going to be a real estate agent. But it just sort of combined a lot of my interests in cities and communities, in architecture, with kind of my love of our community. So I was very involved in, as a volunteer and with part-time work in various aspects of the community, economic development-wise, politically. And I just thought it was an interesting combination of all of my previous experiences and my interests. But on a more practical level, I was kind of thinking ahead, my marriage wasn't working for me. I wasn't happy. I was a stay-at-home mom for a really long time, and I knew that I needed to go back into the workforce, but I had 3 kids, and I wanted something that still allowed me a little flexibility with them. And so really on a practical level, it was sort of a next step in my career and getting back into the workforce. And it was really hard to do because when you're not working for a long time, it's just difficult, and you wonder like if you're competent to do anything. But it did give me a lot of drive to work really hard and be successful in what I do. So as far as, all of those transitions that surround real estate and certainly divorce, I have been there on a personal level. So we're going to talk about, my professional experience with divorce tonight, but just want all of our listeners to know that I have been there myself personally. So
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. One thing that I know a lot of people struggle with, and we experience a little feedback, so I'm just going to make a little adjustment. So I'm hoping that we don't have the same feedback I heard just a moment ago. If anybody has any problem hearing me, please let me know on the live. But what I was saying, Allison, was that I really appreciate the fact that you shared that with our listeners, because I know a lot of people, when they go through a divorce, they don't necessarily look for professionals that have been divorced. But when they find that out, it gives them a level of comfort because they know that you understand not only the upheaval of their emotional state, but also the upheaval that it often causes to their financial world when they have to deal with issues that impact your area of expertise, which is real estate.
It can be really scary. And part of our job as a real estate agent is to make it not scary and maybe help people maybe become excited about what that next chapter could be. And I know for me, speaking on a personal level, the real estate transition was very liberating for me, because just moving into something new that was my own, that was different, that wasn't where all of the good and the bad memories were, was like an important step in my sort of moving forward, to use your phrase, with the series. So it can be hard, but because of my personal experience, I think we do a particularly good job with divorcing clients, sort of always. With real estate and divorce, you always have to keep your eyes on the big picture, which is generally in a divorce, and Allison, you could speak to this much more effectively than I can, both parties sort of have to accept that financially they're not going to be as comfortable as they were before, when they were only maintaining that one household. So my goal is really to get both parties the most money. I have to make sure that they feel comfortable with me and that I'm representing both of their interests, because it's in both of their interests to do well with the sale. That'll help enable their next chapter. So that's kind of what we try to refocus people always on. The goal is we're all on the same team, and our mutual goal is to get you the most money for your sale and make it as easy and stress-free as possible. Oh, Allison, I can't hear you.
There we go.
There we go. Now you're back.
So it's important to note that what you've just indicated is that you really work for both of the parties in a divorce. Even though they have different interests in their divorce, they have the same interest in terms of selling their real estate and maximizing their profit from that transaction, as do you. So that definitely is a positive that comes from that. I just want to acknowledge, Allison, that we have quite a few guests on the line. Donna Rainier, who I know is also in your industry. So thank you, Donna, for stopping by. We have Stephanie Rizzuto, and Stephanie was on our show before. She's also an NADP, so hi, Stephanie. We've got Jamond Ellis, Daryl Brooks, April Israeli, who is an attorney at the firm, and George Mount. And so as people are coming in, guys, please feel free to comment, ask any questions that you have of our guest, Allison Ziefert. And please share the live so that your friends, family, colleagues can see and learn along with us tonight. So we have had some brief discussion and we have people coming in. So I just want to again remind people that you're watching Moving Families Forward with Allison Williams with Williams Law Group. Here I am the CEO of Williams Law Group. And tonight our guest is Allison Ziefert, who is a #1 top realtor with Keller Williams MidTown Direct Realty. And so, Allison, I want to kind of jump in now to some substance about the real estate process. And one of the things that I know a lot of people have questions about if they haven't gone through this before is what's the first step for someone who wants to market, who is in the market to buy a house? What should they be looking for?
So I think the first step is coming to the understanding that your house is a commodity, your current home, if you're going to sell it, and having some dreams about where you want to be. Divorce can be a really unhappy time. And like I said, from my personal experience, that getting the new place can be one of the happy outcomes of divorce, getting something of your own. So I think, using your imagination and figuring out what's going to work for your new family configuration and your lifestyle, what's going to be the best for you. And then the first really important thing that you have to do after that is speak with a lender about what you can afford and get pre-qualified to buy a home. Your lender may tell you that you can afford a lot more than you really want to spend, and we will never push you to spend more than you would like to. People want to have money for travel and educating their kids and eating dinners out and whatever it is else that you need to do. But getting that pre-approval is really important. We can't really make offers on homes unless you have that pre-approval, and it sort of gives us a guideline as to what towns you should be looking in, and it helps us focus on exactly which properties we should be looking at. And then you want to decide on a realtor that you'd like to work with on the purchase. So those are really the three biggest things: is sort of getting your head around your house that you want to sell, maybe as a commodity. Where would you like to go? How much can you afford to spend, and who you want to work with you on that journey?
Yeah. So Allison, that's one of the difficult things that we encounter on our end of the divorce process, is really helping people to think of their property as a business transaction. And it's the same thing as dividing up your assets in divorce. We tell people all the time, we have to think about the cost benefit analysis and whether or not economically it makes sense for you to fight for something that emotionally you feel attached to, when the cost to fight about it is going to cost more than the economic value of the thing that you're fighting about. And sometimes people make the decision that emotionally it's worth it to them, and other times they say, I'd like to have it, but it's going to cost me more than it's worth. So I'm sure that in talking about the real estate as a commodity, that you probably had some resistance from people, who really believe that little Timmy's, height marker on the back of the kitchen door is, the most valuable thing in the world, and that, there should be more of a command for their property just based on that. How do you deal with that with people and really help them understand that?
Well, I think one thing that helps is being excited about where you might go. That sort of helps people detach a little bit from whatever emotional attachments they have to their current home. And then the process of getting the home ready is also a nice way of starting to separate yourself from the house in some of the preparations and the staging and the depersonalization that we sometimes recommend. That's a helpful process. We always want to remind people that your house is really only worth what a buyer is willing to pay for it. That's one of the big fundamental tenets of real estate that any seller should understand. And our goal is really to make the house appeal to the most buyers, get it out in front of the most buyers so that we can get you the most profitable sale, and not only money-wise, but the best terms as well. So.
Yeah, so making it desirable to the most buyers, I know that touches upon the area of home staging, and I'm going to ask you about that a little bit later, because more and more we've had clients that are actually have that recommendation, and they oftentimes have a lot of questions about it. Yep. But I'm wondering, how long is the process actually to purchase a home when you're working with someone?
Sometimes it can be really quick, and sometimes it takes a while. I would say that on average, most buyers look at about 10 to 12 homes over a 2 to 3 month period before they find something that appeals to them. One of the things that we try to do for our buyers, we're local market experts, so we're really seeing all of the properties that are coming on the market. If we have a buyer looking for a certain type of property in a certain town in a certain price range, we'll always be previewing and looking out for homes and trying to find things before they come on the market for that client. So it saves our clients time. I mean, a lot of people are busy and they're working, and, we're not going to just, have you looking for the properties. We really look for the properties for you. And I feel like that's one of our strengths, is matching people quickly with the right property. And then once your offer is accepted, most homes are closing in about 45 to 60 days. 90 would be like the latest that we're seeing right now in the marketplace, and 30 days would be the quickest. Sometimes when a client is getting financing, it's a little tough to close in 30 days just because of all the steps that have to happen. But it is possible if all the stars align and we all work together. So normally 45 to 60 days to close.
Okay. Well, that's great information to know. I know that we have a lot of people that have that question about whether or not they're going to be successful at finding their home because they're already so heartbroken over losing the home that they had before. And sometimes finding that right fit, you really have to just be in the right mental space. So it's great that you help people to really find that, and they don't have to just take time off of work and go scouring, if you will, kind of running the street.
About our job, and every week when we preview properties, we're keeping our buyers in mind and taking notes as we go through, and then we contact our buyers and say, hey, something that you might really like came on the market, we should make an appointment to go see it, or you should go to the open house this weekend. So it makes it easier for the buyers, but it's also fun for us. We never get tired of looking at the house. So.
Well, that's great to know. And so for anyone that's joining us now, I just want to remind you that you're watching Moving Forward with Williams Law Group. Our guest tonight is Allison Ziefert. She is a top producing realtor with Keller Williams MidTown Direct Realty. And one of the interesting and unique things about Allison is that she has a prior career in construction management before she actually became a realtor. So she has a unique perspective that I haven't seen from a lot of people that actually sell real estate. So we're very lucky to have her as our guest. And for those of you that are getting value out of our show tonight, please do share the live. Ask any questions that you may have. Our guest is going to be with us for the hour. And Allison, I'm going to move right on along to ask you about some of the benefits for first-time home buyers. For those of you that watch the show every week, thank you for that. We had a guest on, Stephanie Rizzuto, who's also a member of the NADP, the National Association of Divorce Professionals, with Allison and I. And she talked a lot about FHA loans versus traditional loans and mortgages, and shared a lot of value about that. Allison, can you talk to us about what are some of the benefits for somebody who might be buying a home for the first time, perhaps if they live with their spouse in an apartment and this is kind of their first branch out?
Yeah. Well, I would absolutely defer to Stephanie on any financing questions. I know she's really great at what she does. I've heard her speak to our group, and she's really impressive. So I'm sure she knows much more detail than I. But there are conventional loans with as low as a 3% down payment. One of the parties in that transaction has to be a first-time borrower. There are also FHA loans, and those can run as little as 3.5% down. And then there is some down payment assistance with first-time buyers through the state of New Jersey. And that has some limits as far as income and as far as which neighborhoods the state is looking to lend in or to give assistance in. It's $10,000 in closing cost assistance. And we can refer you to a website. I can post it up on Facebook for people who want to click to it. It's part of the Division of Community Affairs website. So we can post that and you can get more information. Unfortunately, right now, all of the funding for 2018 is done. It runs out at a certain point, but maybe for next year, you could get all teed up to take advantage of that. So,
wow. Yeah. So as I noted earlier, Alice, we have some guests on. Donna Reed is a divorce lender, so that's her area of expertise. And she notes that some clients don't realize that a lender does not count gas, electric, and cable, car insurance, and extra activities when qualifying their income. They share those costs when they're married, but once they're divorced, their bills are not shared. So they may be cash poor once they get the house. And it's not always the best idea, even if they do qualify. So I'm sure that that's something that you explore with people as you're kind of helping them find the home. The fact that you can get qualified for something doesn't mean that you can truly afford it once you are there.
If you get a pre-approval letter, I promise you, your lender will tell you can afford a lot more than you really would want to spend based on those other life expenses. So a lot of people come to us and say, like, I don't want to spend more than X amount, and then we'll back that amount into a purchase price and taxes, and we'll figure it out from there. So we work with, several lenders, they're local lenders, and we really kind of defer to them in getting our client ready financially. Sometimes people have issues with credit that they need to correct before they can actually get the best rates or even get a pre-approval. And sometimes with divorce, and Allison, I'm sure you can talk to this more, you need to have certain things in place as far as alimony and child support for several months before you can qualify. So we really do defer to our lenders on it, but they can help you get ready. So if you're thinking about doing this in the future, I would say don't wait to the last minute when you're ready to find something to talk to a lender. Reach out, even a year before. Make sure all of your stuff with your credit is in order so that you can take advantage of the best rates and find out what you would need to do to make the pre-approval strong and easy.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of value in talking early to the professionals, and that's one of the reasons why we're so happy to bring the show to our community, is so that people can start to, really spur their thinking about these issues. And Allison, you mentioned earlier that we see this a lot in divorce, and this is definitely something that we've helped a lot of clients through when it's time to look at what they can afford, not just in terms of economics, but also kind of where they should be, particularly if spouses are going to be separating and they're going to be moving out of their current community. Are they going to be moving into a new community? What is that new community going to provide by way of resources for the family, school for the children, things like that? How do you help people come to an awareness of what they should be looking at in terms of towns and other criteria, school and local amenities and things like that, relative to what they had before, if their income is going to drop, even with alimony and child support?
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes the answer is you can't afford to stay in the community that you were in. But I think the way we sort of sift through that process is with our buyer consultation. And this is something that we really feel is important to work with our buyers. We always sit down with them at the outset. And it takes about a half an hour, but sometimes we chat for a longer period of time. We review with them the whole buying process, how we work with buyers to make sure they're successful and make sure that we know everything about their family needs, lifestyle, what they're looking for, where do they commute to work, if their kids are in certain activities. And we know the towns around here pretty well. So maybe we give them an idea of a town that they hadn't thought of, and, it's something that might work for many of the factors in their lives. So I think that initial buyer consultation is where we would have like a really detailed conversation and try to come up with a strategy where we want to look and what types of properties we would be looking at.
And in that initial buyer consultation, when you're really talking with someone about what it is they should be looking for, how do you work with people that have unrealistic expectations? They owned a home in Wyckoff, New Jersey, in Bergen County, and their spouse was the primary wage earner, or maybe even the sole wage earner with a multi-six-figure income, and now they're going to be separating. Maybe the primary wage earner lost his or her employment and is in the process of rebuilding. Savings are dwindling. Now a spouse that may have been out of the workforce has to return to the workforce. And you really have a lot of question marks in terms of what they can afford, and they're going to have to downsize. How do you help them kind of find the new place that isn't that deluxe apartment in the sky, as some television shows might refer to it as?
Right. Well, I mean, part of that is going to be what they're qualified to buy. Allison, you're going to kill me, but my computer's running out of battery. I'm going to grab my charger real quick. Hold on.
That's okay. And since Allison stepped away, I will remind everyone that you are watching Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. I am Allison Williams, the CEO and founder of Williams Law Group. And we are here today live with Allison Ziefert, who is a top producing realtor. We invited Allison on to help us talk about some issues involving real estate that a lot of our clients will face when they are going through a divorce. So if you're getting value out of tonight's show, please drop a question in the comments. Let us know anything that you'd like to ask Allison about. And please share the live so that your friends, family, and colleagues can see it and get some value out of the show as well. So Allison just had to step away to recharge, and now she's back and she's booted up. So, Allison, we were just talking about some of the issues that people encounter when they're when their expectations may be that they have, the deluxe apartment in the sky, as I referred to it earlier, or that really, really nice, expensive home. And now income is split, expenses have gone up, parties are spending their savings and might not have the resources to stay there. How do you really help someone get into what they can afford and help them actually want it? So they're not just moving into a place that they have to take, but a place that they want to take, even though it's a lot less than what they had before.
Well, I mean, I don't think that that's something that's necessarily specific to divorcing people. I mean, most buyers start out thinking that they're going to get a lot more than they can afford. And then, especially right now, our markets and the towns that we serve are very competitive. And the prices have been going up year after year. So, I think buyers completely get educated about kind of what's out there in the price range, and we help them do that. And like I said, helping them to match with the best properties that they can afford. And one of the things that we do, I mean, it's partially my personality, but it's partially just like my philosophy on how to do business, is we're super honest with people. And that may be good or may be bad, but if somebody comes to me and says, well, I'm getting divorced, my income is going to be this, and I want that deluxe apartment in the sky, I'll say, I'm really sorry, you're not going to get it. I don't want to waste your time, but this is what you can afford in your price range. And these are some of the options we can look at. And so, we're never going to delude you into thinking that you can afford something. And I think, people are pretty smart, and they're quickly going to figure out so much information for buyers online. They're quickly going to see, by looking at open houses and starting to look at the listings we send them, what's really realistic in their price range. So,
well, it's very important that people have advisors that give them the real of what they're going to be facing, so that they don't get deluded into thinking they can have more than what they would like. And the reality is, in our world as divorce attorneys, we really want to work with professionals that give that realistic view to people, so that it keeps their eyes focused on the future in terms of what they can have, and also how they can build for what they want in the future. Because the next home doesn't have to be the last home; it may just be your next stepping stone to the house, in the community that you really want. So with that, we know that there's timing of the markets. I've heard a lot of people use that phrase, and in real estate as well as in investing. And I have a question about, how do you know when is the right time to buy? If I was actually going to advise a client to either time their marital dissolution around what they're going to do with real estate, or vice versa, what would you advise someone if they asked you the best time to buy real estate?
Best time to buy? Honestly, Allison, whether you're a buyer or seller, I would say the best time to buy or sell is whatever's right for you, and don't try to time the market. Like, from the seller perspective, there are very few times of the year where I wouldn't list a house. 4th of July weekend, Memorial Day weekend, the week between Christmas and New Year's. Those are just not good times, because everybody is distracted with other things. And to paint a really broad brush from the seller perspective, if you look at all of the towns in our marketplace, and I just wanted to say that every month we are happy to send you our newsletter, which contains market reports on many of the towns in this area, including Milburn, Short Hills, Maplewood, South Orange, Livingston, West Orange, Union, yada, yada, yada. So if you're interested in getting our newsletter, just post something on the Facebook link and let me know, or direct message me with your email, and we'll get you set up for the newsletter. So anyway, but if you look with a broad brush at when houses sell for the most, you see the highest list price to sales price ratios in May and June for the most part. Keep in mind, this is an average. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get 2 or 3% lower for your house for sure. But with broad brushstrokes, you may get 2 or 3% less if you listed another time of year. But that's not necessarily true. I listed my house at the right time for me. I had to get my financial house in order, make sure my divorce was settled. I had to file a tax return for a previous year in order to get credit for that income so I could qualify for a mortgage. And on a very small level, I wanted to list my house when my kids were away for part of the summer, because I didn't want to have to worry about cleaning up after them and stressing out about the house being messy. So I ended up
That's
listing.
not small at all for anyone out there that has kids.
Dog, you get it. I ended up listing my house in late July, and I ended up getting 20% over asking for it. So whatever is the right time for you is the right time to do it, with a few exceptions of like holiday weekends. If we have your house priced well, well prepared, and easy to show, and a good marketing plan, it is going to sell for top dollar any time of the year. So I would say it's whenever it's right for you. I don't necessarily think you have to list your house in the spring. Now, for buyers, I would say that the spring market tends to be really competitive. There are just more buyers out there. So, for example, last year, in the beginning of 2017, we had some buyers that came to us, and they were looking for houses in a very popular price range in Maplewood or South Orange, which was like 500 to 600, which is kind of an affordable sweet spot average price in the market. Neither of those families had 20% or more to put down, and it was really smoking hot. And we were just really honest with them and said, listen, so many houses are selling with multiple offers. You're just going to be butting your head against the wall, because without that big down payment and the ability to pay, a certain amount over asking price, it's just going to be hard for you, and I don't want you to get frustrated. But then we phoned them up in the fall when things had cooled down a little bit, and there were a number of things on the market in their price range, and they both ended up getting houses within like a weekend. So that spring market is really competitive with the buyers. And sometimes, there may be less to choose from, but you might just have an easier time competing, especially if you don't have a super big down payment at a different time of the year. So
Yeah. So Allison, thank you for sharing that in terms of, planning based on your own circumstances and not necessarily timing the market.
Mm-hmm.
We often will have clients come in and it's almost kind of folklore now that people will say, you list in the spring, of course, because people want to buy that house before the summer so they can get settled in so that the school year starts, their kids are already settled in the community. But as you've indicated, there are other factors to consider that may make it a better choice for someone to wait based on what they've got going on in their own life, whether they are dissolving a marriage or may just simply be buying a home for a first time or even just moving. So I want to note that we do have several guests that have popped on the live. Amy Coors, Patrick Smith, Judy Ann Chung have all noted that they're enjoying the live, sharing some information, some positive feedback. Thanks, guys, for the likes and the loves and the thumbs up. Judy Ann says, good information, ladies. And we have a guest, Loretta Key, who noted that she's not married and she's not looking for a loan. But maybe she's looking for a house or looking to learn a little bit more about that. So thank you, Loretta, for being with us tonight. And we're just going to keep talking, Allison, because you're giving us a lot of great information. So what does someone need to do to get their house ready for the market? Because you've mentioned several times that if the house is ready or we've got it prepared to show. But what does that mean from your perspective?
So first of all, we want to address any problems that we think could be creating difficulty in a future transaction. So if you have a leak in your roof and it's created a damaged area of plaster on the ceiling, if you have an underground oil tank, any of those repair items that kind of need to be done, and you can talk with me about exactly what some of those big trigger issues would be in a home inspection. I will walk through the house and sort of identify things that need to be repaired. So we need to make sure that all those are taken care of. And then, as you mentioned before, a lot of people are staging their homes, and in today's market, if your house isn't staged, it's hard to compete. And so what staging does is it's almost like photo styling. If you want your photos and your video to be really excellent, and we feel that it's very important to have all of the visuals online be amazing, because that's really our first showing these days. Most buyers are going straight to the internet to look for houses, and if your house doesn't look good online and doesn't have professional photos and doesn't have all the information that a buyer wants, you're not going to get them in the door. So staging helps houses sell faster, and it helps them sell for more money, on average about 17% more than unstaged homes. And what a stager will do is they'll come in, you may have some paint colors that you love. Allison, your dining room might be purple because you love it, but most buyers wouldn't love your purple living room, and they may suggest painting it millennial gray, which seems to be like the color everywhere now. You may have wall-to-wall carpeting upstairs that isn't so new anymore, and there may be hardwood under there, and buyers don't like carpeting these days, so we may suggest removing it. There may be some pieces of furniture that are honestly too big in scale and making your rooms look smaller. We may want to move those to the garage. And then the stagers will come in mostly using your own things, but they'll add some of their own accessories and pillows and lamps and things like that. So it really helps younger buyers, who really are the buyers who, for the most part, buying properties out here, who are pretty hip in their tastes and maybe a little more hip than you and me, connect with your home, and it makes it look the best online. So I staged my own home when I sold it. I truly believe in it. Even if your house is in great condition, there's always something. It's like when you get dressed in the morning and you put in your earrings and you put on some lipstick. Instead of going out without it, it's going that extra little step of the way so that you're really competitive. It'll put you into the next price point. And so staging can be, as low cost as, less than $1,000, or it could be in the tens of thousands of dollars, depending on what type of house it is, what needs to be done, and what price point we're trying to achieve. And that's something that we always talk about with our sellers.
So putting that lipstick on the house is something that is not just cosmetic. It actually does have a quantitative value.
Absolutely. It's really hard to compete, like I said, unless you are stepping it up like everybody else. And then the other thing you should do is discuss a price point. Where do you want to position this property in the market, and a marketing plan with your agent. So you want to discuss all that strategy about pricing and marketing with your agent.
So thank you for sharing that, Allison. We have a question coming in from Donna Ranieri. She asks, and it's quite a few questions in a thread here, so I'm going to read them all and then let you dive in. So she asks, how hard is it to sell a home with an oil tank? I have a buyer who likes a house with an oil tank. Should they have the seller convert it prior to purchasing it? I truly didn't even know that homes are still using oil heat. So what say you about that in terms of homes with oil tanks?
In today's market, it's very difficult to sell a house with an underground oil tank. We're not worried about the tanks that are above ground outside of a house or in the basement above ground. We're worried about the tanks that are underground. Even if that tank had been previously abandoned in place under supervision of the town with permits, cleaned and filled, it can still potentially have leaked. And so your attorney probably will not let you close, and your lender will not want to lend on the property. And you wouldn't want to take on the liability, even if it was all fine and good with you. There's nothing legally required about moving the tank. But even if you personally were like, I don't care, let there be an oil tank under my ground, when you go to sell the house, you're going to have a big problem. So we always recommend our buyers to do a sweep for underground oil tanks. And we always recommend to our sellers, if they know of one, that they should have it pulled before listing the house. You don't want to wait until the middle of your transaction, because sometimes with an underground oil tank, if there is contamination, it can take a while to clean up. And if your buyer has a certain time when they need to be moved in and they can't wait, you might lose that buyer. So it's better to have that taken care of for sure prior to listing.
And is that something that normally the seller would take care of, or do you ever see transactions where the buyer would?
Never.
Never. It's always on the seller.
Lands on the seller, and that's just the way it is in the marketplace today. Unless it's an investor who's really willing to take a risk. Many investors aren't even willing to do that, because the thing is, you don't know until that tank is pulled what the scope of the potential contamination could be. And it could be nil, or it could be tens of thousands of dollars. So that's kind of a big unknown, and there are very few people that are willing to take that on.
Yeah. So there you have it, Donna. You're not gonna unload the property if it has an underground oil tank. It's something that the seller has to take care of before getting it on the market. But since you were Allison, you were talking to us about getting your home ready and staging it, and I'm glad that you talked about home staging, because I've seen a lot of different corollary services to that particular area of expertise. So I actually have a colleague based out of North Carolina, Isaac, and he actually does photography specific to getting you that great listing, available professional photography that's specific to the right angles, the right color, the right lighting to display the home with the greatest amount of curb appeal, if you will, so that people are drawn to it even online. So I know that staging is something that does increase market value. So I say that only so that any clients that we have that might be a little resistant to paying that extra, they're kind of at the distress point. They say, I just want to offload the property. I'll take it as is.
We'll be
It
leaving money
really
on
does
the table.
move the needle. Yeah. 17%. I mean, of a $500,000 home, you're not talking about a small amount of money. So people should definitely consider the advice of their realtor when they get that advice that they should be doing more. And for those of you that are just tuning in, Donna does say thank you, Allison, for that great advice. You are watching Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. I am Allison Williams, the founder and CEO of Williams Law Group. Here at the firm, we focus on families and we help families through divorce, custody, domestic violence, and related family law matters. And our guest tonight is Allison Ziefert, who is a top producing realtor at Keller Williams MidTown Direct Realty, located in Maplewood. And this is the number one brokerage house in the Maplewood, South Orange area. Allison's business model is based upon helping clients get the most stress-free and smooth process possible in selling and buying their real estate. And before her career in real estate, she actually had a career in construction as a project manager, and she also has a degree in art history and urban planning. So I want to note just kind of going back to some things that Allison has said. She's talked to us a little bit tonight about the process for purchasing a home, the benefits for first-time home buyers, and the right time. And her answer, I thought, on that was spot on in terms of choosing what's best for you, not necessarily timing the market, which is what a lot of people try to do. But I want to ask about something that I know comes up a lot with our clients, is this issue of a lockbox on the house.
Okay.
So realtors will often make the recommendation, in order for us to show the house as much as possible, we need to have a lockbox so we can access the home at our discretion, not at your discretion. And we get a lot of pushback on that, particularly from people that have children and, particularly young kids, or may be in a situation where they're in a constant state of trying to harangue their schedules around the children's schedules because of therapy and things like that get added on in the divorce process. What do you say to a person who may be resistant to having a lockbox on their property?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think lockboxes are great for a number of reasons. As I said before, we want to get your house out in front of as many buyers as possible. And so as an agent who works with a lot of buyers, my team has a buyer specialist. Her name is Ginge Calhoun. She's amazing, and she handles most of our buyers. Usually a buyer is coming not just to see one home. Maybe you're looking at 3 or 4 homes in one period. And you need to arrange all of those showings. So if you have to arrange your schedule with the seller in that, they have to be home to open the door and they're only available after work, and your buyer wants to come at 12 noon, that makes it really difficult to show that property. And properties have difficult showing instructions. And when I mean difficult, like no showings between these times of day, or you have to give 2 days notice, it becomes onerous. And frankly, agents will just skip over it and you won't get as many showings. So you're going to sell your house for less if it's difficult to show. The other things I would say about the lockbox, there are 2 huge benefits. One is security. We know exactly who's coming in that home and exactly when it came in. God forbid something should happen, something should break. We know who's in the house. You don't want to open the door to somebody who happens to see the for sale sign and says, hey, I'm an agent. Do you mind if I show your house? What if they're not really an agent? Only people who have real estate licenses and are members of the Garden State MLS, or whatever MLS is in your region, are able to access those lockboxes. So for security purposes, I would highly recommend it. The other thing that's great about it is it allows me, as a listing agent, to keep track of all of the showings. Are we getting a lot of showings? Who showed it? I follow up with every agent that shows a property, and I ask them what is their feedback, and I bring that back to my seller. So if people are saying, we love the house, but the basement smells musty, I need to deliver that feedback to my seller so that we can fix it. I also want to be, what if we have multiple people who are interested in the property? I want to be able to follow up with everyone who showed it and say, hey, we're going to be taking offers on Tuesday at 5. If your buyer has interest, please call me and I'll give you details. So it helps me to track who showed it and follow up with them, give feedback to my seller, and keep in touch with those agents who showed it. On top of that, the security is a positive. So those are some of the reasons I would say lockboxes are great.
Yeah, so those are a lot of great reasons. And I mentioned this issue about lockboxes because we are oftentimes, as matrimonial attorneys, put in that position of having one party that really wants to move full steam ahead. They're psychologically more ready for the divorce than the other party.
Yeah.
And the person that wants to move ahead is like, just offload the property now. I don't care if we lose $10,000 or $15,000. I just want to be done with it because I want to move on with my life. And the other party is holding on like this is the whoopee that they're never going to be able to find again. And they don't want to sell the house, but they may be court ordered to, or they may have consented to because economically they understand that they aren't going to be able to afford the house. So as a realtor, and your role, you said earlier, is really to advocate for both of the parties so that they can maximize their return and both walk away with as much as possible. What do you do in that situation where you get the sense that one party is resisting and you're you don't want to alienate that party by criticizing them for being reluctant to do certain things, but at the same time, your fiduciary responsibility is to the both of them, and you have another client, their spouse, who really wants to go in full steam ahead to run roughshod over them to get the process done. What do you do in that scenario?
I actually haven't found too many people who object to having a lockbox. I would explain to them that being home and around to open the door makes buyers uncomfortable. I would explain to them that fewer people are going to be able to show it. I would explain to them about the security and about my ability to follow up. But I mean, if one person is really trying to sabotage a transaction, there's probably not a whole lot we can do about it. Luckily, I've never been in that situation. I also would just try to figure out, maybe this person has a concern that we can address in another way. Like, for example, you said maybe they have a busy schedule or their kid needs certain types of therapy, and that therapy is being done at the house between 12 and 2. So maybe we make a note on the listing, like, we need an hour notice and no showings between 12 and 2. And that would solve that problem. So I would say when people have an objection, it's usually coming from some kind of fear or concern. Finding out what that is and helping to address it is a great way to do it. So I haven't really luckily had such a resistance to lockboxes once you explain that it's going to make everybody's life a lot easier.
Well, I'm glad that you have not had that experience. Unfortunately, I can say that I've had it quite a few times. And whenever we've encountered that, we really try to protect the realtor, recognizing that your role is really there to help both parties. You're not obviously you have a vested interest in selling the property. That's where your commission comes from. But your goal is to maximize return for both of them, and both of them should be on board with that. So sometimes we have to go to court and explain to a judge that one party is being obstreperous, and now we have to remove them from the process as much as possible. But for those of you that are tuning in now, you're watching Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. I am Allison Williams, the founder and CEO of Williams Law Group, and I am your host for this evening. And our guest tonight is Allison Ziefert, who is a top producer with Keller Williams MidTown Direct Realty. And she's been talking to us about moving real estate and some of the struggles, burdens, joys, benefits of selling real estate, buying real estate, and all that's entailed in that process. So I want to thank Allison again for coming tonight. And for those of you that are just tuning in, please do share the live. Let us know if you have any questions. We're having Allison here as our expert for tonight. She'll be here all evening. So as things come up, any questions you have about the process, please do take advantage of her vast knowledge and experience because she's here to help. So Allison, I want to turn now to kind of moving beyond your specific role as the realtor and talk about who else is involved in this process. What other professionals do you draw upon for assisting you to help a parent or help a family member sell their real estate or buy real estate in this process?
Well, really, we like to work as a team with these other professionals. And in the case of divorce, it can get a little trickier than in just a regular transaction. So we definitely, as we said before, a lender is very important. We need to make sure that if our client would be buying a property that they are able to qualify. So that's a discussion that they could have with that lender about what their expenses are, what their assets are, what their income is, and what their divorce agreement says, and how much they can actually afford to buy. Then, of course, me as the realtor, we would be part of the team talking about preparing the property, what the best optimal price for the property would be, what we think it would sell for, and how we're going to market that property, as well as the timing. And then a financial planner and accountant are also really handy. Real estate sometimes involves tax implications, and so your accountant would be able to speak specifically to that. And then financial planner would be able to talk to our clients about how the purchase or sale of the property would fit into their overall financial plan, because they're looking at the big picture and where this person wants to be in however many years, and their retirement and their college savings and all of those things that realtors don't really get involved with. So financial planner and accountant are super helpful. The divorce attorney, obviously, you need to make sure that a purchase or sale is done in accordance with any settlement agreement, and that any title issues are worked out with the person's real estate attorney, so that we have, an ability to close and give clear title and all of that stuff. And then in Northern New Jersey, buyers and sellers all use real estate attorneys to liaise with the divorce attorney and work out those title issues and help you negotiate your purchase or sale transaction along with the realtor. So those are the people that I think are really important. And I relied on them, when I sold my longtime home and bought a new home, and just going through the whole divorce process. It's really great to have those people on your side, because you may have a question about, well, if I get this much child support and I take this much alimony, how is that going to impact my taxes? And so it's always good to have those people. Even if you're not getting divorced, it's great to have those people. But that's really what I see as like the dream team that's around the transaction.
Well, that definitely is a dream team. I mean, that's a lot of different professionals. And if you're working with that many people, is it in a kind of a spider web form where you're the hub and you're reaching out to these various different people? Or is it more like a spoke where you come in and you bring them all in at once and kind of everybody powwows and kind of does a deal for the benefit of the buyer and seller?
Well, I think the client is really at the hub, and we can recommend people, through our networking group or people that we've worked with professionally before in all of these areas. But then some clients are pretty savvy and they have their own advisors already lined up, and we can recommend that they speak to them. So, all of those parties aren't involved every step of the way. The realtor and the client are really the realtor is really the catalyst for the whole transaction, but the client is really at the center. So we just want to make sure everybody's getting the best advice, and having those people out there, like I said. I mean, was there anybody else that you feel would be key in that, in advising a client who's purchasing or selling?
Well, from our experience, every person that you named is an absolutely essential component of a real estate transaction. And I guess the only person that I would add, it would depend on whether it was a residential real estate transaction or commercial. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes we will help clients here at Williams Law Group, we will help clients that have investment properties. Right. And as a part of their divorce settlement, they may decide that one party is going to keep the marital home and the other is going to move into one of their investment properties so that they don't have to attenuate their real estate holdings. Mm-hmm. But they're going to, maybe convert one into now a primary residence. And there's a lot of code implications that come up when you're trying to convert property that may have been used or zoned commercial into property that's going to now be used in a residential capacity. So the only other component of that we might include would be somebody who deals with zoning. But outside of that, I think you covered everyone. In fact, I think the dream team that you would have envisioned would probably give even more value than just one individual. And I think that again, this is the reason why we want to have experts on our show that really have a level of expertise that Allison has. And as someone who we both share a passion for helping families going through the divorce process, and as a result, we are both in the National Association of Divorce Professionals. Part of what's beautiful about that is that we share that common theme of wanting to make sure that we are connected with people who are not just people who have a vocation that touches upon what we need, but somebody who doesn't approach it as a transaction, but really as a part of helping people through a difficult time with the level of expertise and knowledge and skill that we both bring to the table. So, Allison, I want to thank you for that. And we have some more comments, a lot of great thank you, appreciation. People were able to comment upon specific questions. Like Donna noted that the seller in her transaction was willing to give a seller's concession to the buyer. And that was talking about the oil tank situation earlier. And we have, again, some more kudos coming in. So everyone, thank you for that. If you're just tuning in, I've just noted earlier, I will note again, you're watching Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. I am Allison Williams, the founder and CEO of Williams Law Group. If you're getting value out of tonight's live, I ask that you do share it so that more people can learn about the topic of tonight's discussion, which is real estate transactions. And our guest tonight, Allison Ziefert, is a top producing real estate realtor with Keller Williams MidTown Direct Realty. And it's the #1 brokerage house in the Maplewood, South Orange area. So Allison's approach is different in that she really tries to make her clients have a smooth and stress-free transaction by doing things such as scouting the properties that people are going to look into and having those candid conversations with people about how to move their real estate and what they should be looking for. So, Allison, you mentioned earlier how people can opt in for your newsletter. If you would share that with us again for anybody that's just tuning in now, and also let people know how they can get a hold of you if they would like more information or help with a real estate transaction.
So we send out a great newsletter every month. We usually write something that's a little meaty that has to do with real estate. This month we're writing something about the rise in interest rates and how that would impact affordability. We have a great list of all kinds of fun activities that are happening in the area. And we also profile a local business every month. Like last month, we highlighted all of the farmers markets in the area. So people love getting it. But most importantly, we share market reports from many of the towns that we cover. Maplewood, South Orange, West Orange, Union, Springfield, Livingston, Milburn, Short Hills, Bloomfield, Montclair, all of those communities. And so if you're interested in following the market, it's a great way to do that. And every month we share that with our readers. So what I'll do is I'll post on your Facebook page, our website, and somebody can direct message me and just let me know that they're interested and share their email with me, and then we'll include them in our list. I just wanted to offer everybody just the opportunity to talk to me confidentially about any real estate questions you have, whether you're getting divorced or not. My team is really happy to talk with you. We're a small team. We have me, I handle most of the listings, Ginge Calhoun, my wonderful buyer specialist, and Laura Gisadue, she is our administrative person. So we all we have the wonderful benefits of a team, but we're still small, so we still get to enjoy that one-on-one, contact with our clients. So the newsletter, like I said, is great. And if you have questions, if you're looking for a market analysis or just want to talk about making a transition yourself, we'd be really happy to talk to you. And everything we discuss is realtor client privilege. So it's just
is that a thing, or is that just to make it? It's a thing. So everyone, thank you for tuning in tonight. You have been watching Moving Families Forward with Williams Law Group. I am Allison Williams, your host and CEO and founder of Williams Law Group. And tonight's guest, Allison Ziefert, is a top producing realtor with Keller Williams MidTown Direct Realty. And Allison, I just want to thank you so much. You've given us a lot of insight about how to handle real estate transactions and what people can do in terms of thinking about what is best as they move forward in their lives, whether they're going through a divorce or not. You are certainly somebody who has a lot of expertise in that regard. Allison, thank you for sharing the resources. Again, we will drop those links into our live for anyone that was here live. Please circle back. In a few minutes, we will have those links up and available to you. And I also want to just note that Allison mentioned earlier, and I thank her for her vulnerability, that she too has gone through the divorce process. So, as somebody who has gone through that process, she knows what the process was for not only the transactional aspect of the real estate transaction, but what it meant to her to have someone guiding her through the process, answering her questions, and really helping her to find that next place. Because as I've said before, and I said it at the beginning of the show, I'll say it again. We very much here at Williams Law Group firmly believe that divorce does not have to be a process of deconstruction. It really can be a rebuilding of something new and something exciting that you can look forward to in your life that really is just about you. Because you're no longer going to have to make decisions from a place of two people having to compromise to get to what they will both like, but you're making a decision based on what you in your individual capacity find that will fulfill you the most. So it really is a great opportunity to do that. And your home is such a personal purchase. It's such a major purchase for most of us that certainly having the right realtor at your side is a benefit. And so Allison Ziefert, certainly based on your expertise, would be a great choice for helping in that regard. And so with that, I'm going to conclude our show for tonight. For those of you that tuned in live, thank you so much for stopping by. Still share the live if you've had an opportunity. If you have not yet had an opportunity to do that, we will be again here next Monday at 7 p.m. If you have any questions for Allison Ziefert, her information is going to be on our Facebook page. So please message her. She's giving you that opportunity. You don't want to miss that, and you don't want to pass it by. Have a great Monday.
That was fun.